Thank you so much, Sayano. So we're going to begin by diving into a little bit about what CityHive is and what we are and what we do, and then also what this program really is all about. So CityHive is a nonprofit organization that envisions cities where youth are actively involved in civic shaping, planning, and decision-making. A youth-engaged city to us is a resilient, sustainable, and livable city, not only for young people, but for all current and future generations. Through our work, we try to bridge the gap between the youth in so-called Metro Vancouver and other institutions, such as municipal and provincial governments, and other civic and community organizations. The Youth Climate and Innovation Lab really did stem from a program called the EnviroLab program. Many of you have probably heard of it, and that's one of the reasons you're here today. So the EnviroLab program was a series of labs that ran from 2019 to 2021 that equipped youth with the skills and tools to tackle complex urban challenges. From the EnviroLab program, we learned that youth are feeling more and more climate anxious, and that youth and municipalities need to create co-creative spaces and co-collaborative spaces to take climate action together. Based on these takeaways and the feedback we received from our community, CityHive has introduced a brand new climate action cohort-based program called the Youth Climate Innovation Lab.
So this program, called the Youth Climate Innovation Lab, is a cohort-based program for youth ages between 18 and 30 living across so-called Metro Vancouver. And they're here to learn, upskill, and create bold actions to address climate challenges and advance a just transition. And this program gave participants the opportunity to collaborate with municipalities, civic institutions, and community organizations on climate projects that directly contribute to the climate agenda in Metro Vancouver. And this cohort, this very first cohort of YCIL, brought together 22 youth from all over so-called Metro Vancouver with various backgrounds and interests such as environmental science, policy, urban planning, visual art, justice work, and so many more. Together, they have created this community that values and celebrates these differences while being connected by this shared interest in climate action. Sorry.
Technical difficulties, folks.
Sorry about that. Okay, right. Yeah. So today, these cohort members will present their learnings from the cohort, from the program, as well as their projects that they've been working on for the last couple of months. And over the last few months, our cohort members have brought youth perspectives to the forefront of the climate work happening in Metro Vancouver, hoping to bring positive changes to our life, our city, and our futures. And we are very happy to have you all here today with us to celebrate them. And we hope you enjoy learning this cohort and celebrate their work.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sayano. With this being said, we are going to invite a few of our cohort members, Yazzie, Danielle, and Brian, to give a little bit of, share a few reflections with you about what they've been learning during our first cohort and all of the incredible work they've done. So yeah, come on up.
Thank you, Jack and Sayano. So over the past few months, in addition to sharing our land stories and exploring positionality within colonial Canada, the Youth Climate Innovation Lab has allowed us to enhance our understanding of climate action, civic engagement, and the community. The program expanded our climate toolkit to better understand climate issues in our lives. We learned to think critically about systemic issues brought on by climate change, and spent a lot of time discussing environmental racism and colonization, as well as how different groups were disproportionately impacted. We also learned how to view these issues from local and global levels and discussed how justice, decolonization, and sustainability are interconnected.
YCIL also deepened our awareness of different climate initiatives happening at the municipal level by educating us on civic processes and introducing us to groups and shareholders who are making these decisions. We learned that also that there's always more to learn from everybody, and that everyone can teach us something new. By working with our project partners, we felt active and optimistic about making a difference in our communities. And this gave us invaluable experience in communicating with clients while working on a team. It empowered us to continue our climate action journeys outside the program, whether as individuals through implementing sustainable habits or as collectives, such as educating our families and communities.
Another main theme throughout this program was the importance of connection and community. Climate change can feel so overwhelming to face as an individual, but through this program, we felt safe to explore these topics from a place of curiosity and energy with each other. This community also provided us with an encouraging and judgment-free space to learn about civics and how to engage with our local governments. Furthermore, we learned how climate and civic communication needs empathy and compassion in addition to scientific facts. We gained so much from this program and had so much fun together, and it has given us all hope in the face of climate change and a renewed sense of meaning. Working with our cohort and our project partners allowed us to put action into place, and we're very excited to share these projects with you all today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Yazzie, Danielle, and Brian for sharing your learnings with us. We will now move on to the main section and segment of our evening, which is the project presentations. So in a few moments, I will invite all of our project teams to one by one come up and present all of the hard work that they've been doing within the general Metro Vancouver community. I ask that you hold off any of your questions until the end because we will have a Q&A session in breakout rooms that will be happening after all of the projects are presented. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to invite our first project team up, City of Coquitlam, to present everything that they've been working on. Come on up.
Hello, I don't know if you can see me. Oh yeah, I see myself there. Okay. Hi everyone, so glad that you are here participating. Our team has partnered with the City of Coquitlam to work on addressing and reducing the contracted services component of the city's corporate GHG inventory. This is our team. We have Shirley, Iming, and Jasmine here. Jasmine, sorry. And we will be talking to you about what we've been doing for the past couple months.
So since signing the BC Climate Action Charter in 2007, the City of Coquitlam has steadily worked towards achieving its climate action goals. However, the emissions driven by the purchase of services and supplies, Scope 3 GHG emissions, which make up 25% of total GHG emissions, remain largely unmanaged and unaccounted for. The city's inventory relies on vendors self-reporting their fuel use. However, the contractor fleet is outside the city's influence, meaning there is no contractual consequence for not reporting not responding to the request, impacting the completeness of data and collection efforts. There is also limited provincial guidance on this aspect of annual reporting. With differences in the data reported, there is no guarantee surrounding quality and accuracy. For both the vendors and the city, this is currently a labor-intensive process. The quality of the city's reporting depends on the quality and reliability of the data received. And all these challenges affect the city's confidence in the data as well as year-over-year analysis. So can we find a better way to collect contractor fleet emissions for reporting processes?
So to start off on project highlights, first, our key actors include the City of Coquitlam, who has tasked us with this project, its vendors who provide contracted services, the province, who has given guidance on the minimum value required for reporting, and other municipalities across the Lower Mainland who may face similar challenges and barriers or have recommendations for better approaches. So we have conducted a jurisdictional scan and research analysis on contractor emissions. Then through interviews and written surveys of 8 main questions to 4 different municipalities, including the City of New West, the City of West Vancouver, Port Moody, and Abbotsford, our team seek to identify and understand how other municipalities select vendors, collect vendor data, assure data quality, motivate vendors to comply with fuel use submission requests, and influence vendor fuel choice or greenhouse gas emissions management. So based on our findings from this analysis, we aim to provide the city with a set of recommended next steps. This may also be a good opportunity for streamlining this process for other municipalities and vendors throughout our region and province. So in short, we wanted to know what works and what doesn't work for other municipalities in Metro Vancouver, and therefore how to improve this process for the city.
Our first recommendation is regarding collaboration between municipalities, since many vendors work for multiple municipalities. Standardizing this process will simplify the tracking process for vendors and allow input from vendors regarding tracking. Along with this is an opportunity to get support from the provincial government and/or Metro Vancouver Regional District. Our second recommendation is to educate key actors of vendor procurement on GHG emissions and tracking. This can be completed through workshops, educating on GHG emissions, as well as a learning module for vendors to complete. These workshops can also be used as a form of engagement to collect feedback from all parties involved.
For the third recommendation is to automate the uploads and calculations by online system. And it means about a regional-wide guidance document and standardize the online platform to automate the tracking and reporting. And however, we know like adoption hurdle can be challenging due to a huge learning curve, but training could be combined with greenhouse gas education workshops after hearing. And next is to strengthen the contractual restrictions, because we just discovered that there's no current repercussions in the contracts with vendors if they do not want to provide the accurate information for municipalities, which means there's no enforcement and executive force. So we want to consider to add some relevant terms about maybe the standard and expectations in the contract as incentives for better reporting. And next is to try to simplify the reporting process. We consider that it's really important to make it as easy as possible because lots of people don't have the scientific literacy. So we really want to make it more simple.
So outside our 4 main recommendations, we also have a couple bigger picture and longer term suggestions for the city to consider as it moves forward. So first, to use our project as a starting point. So where there is capacity to dedicate staff or consultants to further explore the recommendations outlined. And second, to continue these interviews with municipalities, and most importantly, to expand these interviews to discussions with vendors as well, to identify any challenges or hurdles that they are facing. So third, to advocate for more provincial and regional district support from BC and Metro Vancouver. So through this project, we see value and opportunity in collaborating with other municipalities. So for example, there is the possibility of setting up a regional greenhouse gas tracking working group. And this could be the mechanism for collaboration and present a unified voice to the province. This also will provide a framework for all parties involved to identify, discuss, and share information. So an outcome that we would like to see is potentially for BC or Metro Vancouver to create a region-wide guidance document and online platform that would standardize and automate this tracking and reporting process. This will clarify the process for municipalities while helping the region as a whole work towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions to meet targets.
So basically, the final product of our project will be a report detailing first the summary of the interview results, second, the research analysis, and third, a set of recommendations. If the city chooses to move forward with one of our recommendations, it could be like a pilot project that they could implement as a strategy for the future. Our interview process is the starting point of the continued collaboration among different municipalities on this topic. And we would love for our project to be kind of a kickstart plan for consistency and standardization of tracking a plan for contractor emissions. And in conclusion, we want to streamline the reporting process for contractor fleet emissions in all of the regions, municipalities, and vendors, ideally. that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for listening, and a special thank you to Karen, our project partner, for all the support and all the love and all the blessings that we had with her on this whole journey. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, City of Coquitlam, for sharing your lovely project with us and all the hard work that you've accomplished over the last couple of months. I do encourage the audience members, once one of the teams finishes presenting, to either use the reactions function to show your support, or simply unmute and clap. We would really like to kind of create a in-person, well, as close to an in-person environment as possible. So yeah, thank you so much. We are going to move on now to our next project team, which is the District of Squamish and Climate Caucus team. So come on forward.
Hi, good evening, everyone. We're the Climate Caucus and District of Squamish team, and today we're presenting you our final recommendations to the background report document of adapting to climate change in Squamish, and we will show you how we envision Squamish 2050. Next slide. So to start with, I would love to show you our wonderful team members, Alicia, Pierce, Georgie, Achita, and myself, Kim. So this slide shows each of the team members' interest in choosing the priority areas. So Achita and myself says interest in water management, Pierce's experience in seashore protection, Georgie's forestry background, as well as Alicia's passion for sustainability have bolstered our ideation for a sustainable future for Squamish. So before we dive deep into the presentation, I would like to acknowledge that the District of Squamish is situated within the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation, and also it is within the boundaries of electoral area D of the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District. So now I'll pass on to Achita.
Thanks, Kim. So here I'm talking about like the project statement that we had. So in 2016, the District of Squamish presented the backgrounder report, drawing out their adaptation strategies relevant to the district. And our ideation of the project was to update it through a 2022 climate lens. So that meant looking into what kind of priorities the district was looking into and considering potential climate impacts on those priorities, and then offering suggestions by looking into what other communities have been doing in response to similar priorities, and also offering some general sort of recommendations for their upcoming strategy. Next slide, please. So within this adaptation strategy, the district has recognized two basic types of priorities, immediate and long-term. So the immediate priorities are those that have the potential of having near as well as long-term impacts on the district. And long-term priorities are those that do not present a much more immediate threat to the district and may require more planning and research. And within immediate priorities, sea level rise, increased precipitation, and wildfires were already recognized as very important to the district. But we as a team felt that vulnerability of their water supply system, health and well-being, and extreme heat should be immediate priorities for the district as well. In terms of long-term priorities, the district recognized food security, economic development, and changing river flows as its key priorities. And we felt the need to add built infrastructure and nature and biodiversity into the priorities as well. For our recommendations today, we are focusing only on the immediate priorities. Next slide, please. So for the first priority, which is the water supply vulnerability, we recommend that the district taps into water conservation strategies to develop a long-term and sustainable groundwater system that is relevant to the district. So this means expanding water use monitoring in single detached homes as well, because right now the district is monitoring only the ICI sectors, which is institutional, commercial, and instructional. And then we want to also recommend incentivizing the switch to more water efficient meters, like better toilets or better shower heads. And lastly, we also recommend that the district continues all the good work that it has been doing in terms of water conservation campaigns. And this is to maintain a good water usage within the community. I now pass it on to Pierce for his recommendations on sea level rise.
My recommendation is to consider using a nature-based solutions like wetlands to contract the adverse impact of built infrastructure, such as dikes on the ecosystem existing on the shores. I'm passing it on to Georgie, who will talk about our immediate priorities.
Another recommendation is for to address the priority area of increased precipitation. We recommend facilitating the implementation of green technologies, such as a green roof, a rain garden, permeable pavements, and so on. And then also adopting bylaws that mandate and regulate the reconstruction of low impact developments, and to develop stormwater discount programs and provide incentive grants to help this shift to green technologies. Next slide, please. Next, we have wildfires, and I would like to recognize that the District of Squamish has done a lot of work since 2016 for this priority area. There is a newly formed community forest agreement coming on board with a partnership of the District of Squamish and the Squamish Nation. We recommend to continue to engage and work with this community forest on the wildfire mitigation and field treatments in the area around the district. There's a lot of funding that can become available through community forests. Secondly, we recommend updating the community wildfire protection plan, which is now 5 years old, to a community wildfire resiliency plan, which is essentially the next generation of protection plans. And UBCM has come up with a guide, and also the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District has just this year come up with a CWRP, which can be used as an example. Next slide. Next we have health, and can you just click on the screen? And our biggest recommendation is to add well-being to this. There's lots of research and studies, and just I think the general knowledge that climate change is not only affecting our physical health, but our mental health and our well-being. Within this, we also recommend to map the vulnerability of climate change related health hazards within the Squamish district of Squamish. And this can be similar to what we saw Vancouver Coastal Health do in 2019. Next, we have set specific goals in relation to the intersection of health, well-being, and climate change. An example on the screen, it was taken from California's climate adaptation strategy, such as reduce health impacts of wildfire smoke, and then a specific action such as launching Smoke Ready campaign. Thank you.
All right, so our last near-term priority is extreme heat, which was newly identified since 2016 due to the very far-reaching impacts that have occurred across BC, and also given its interlinkages and co-benefits with other priorities. So one of the main recommendations we have for this is to create a heat wave response plan to help increase the capacity of Squamish residents in the event of an extreme heat emergency. This might include identifying heat vulnerable populations as well as geographic locations, and it might also include actually finding or determining response measures like implementing cooling centers that are open to the public and especially have specific accommodations for vulnerable populations. And so to round it off, next slide, please. To round it off, we have some just kind of general overarching recommendations. So first of all, we feel that the district really needs to have and create a standalone climate adaptation plan. The backgrounder report only really informed the official community plan, and it is therefore not a plan in and of itself. Therefore, we recommend that Squamish highlights the importance of climate adaptation by prioritizing it in this way. We also feel it is necessary that the district aligns the Squamish Nation's adaptation work
and incorporate traditional ecological knowledge within the district's plan, not only to make it more comprehensive, but to ensure that the district is prioritizing local Indigenous voices, knowledge, and lived experiences in an effort towards reconciliation. We also noticed that the district monitors and reports on mitigation actions, but doesn't for adaptation. And so we recommend that they expand on delivering this reporting. And finally, another general recommendation is that the district engages with youth like us, but in the Squamish region, to understand the localized concerns over climate change for youth. So to conclude, we want to leave off with what we feel our impact has been. So firstly, we feel that the fulsome review that we've conducted will provide the District of Squamish with a set of fresh ideas that are relevant and in line with climate science, as well as comparable with sister cities. We feel that we've also brought to attention to new concerns like built infrastructure, biodiversity, and extreme heat. As well, we've brought attention and greater urgency to priorities like water supply vulnerability and health and well-being by situating them as near-term priorities requiring more immediate action. And finally, we've also shed light on previously untapped recommendations suggested back in 2016 that have not fully been acted upon. We hope that this impact we hope that with this impact, we have contributed to creating a resilient and inclusive Squamish for now and in the future. And we just want to say, next slide, thank you very much to our project partners. They've been a huge help. Ian Pickett, he's on the line, and he's from District of Squamish, and Sierra Torrance from Climate Caucus, as well as the YCIL facilitation team and our cohort for making it a wonderful experience. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Again, we encourage you folks joining online to either react or clap. I know it might seem a little awkward, but we promise you everybody's clapping here in person. So yeah, thank you so much, Climate Caucus and District of Squamish. And we are going to invite our next project team up, the Vancouver Economic Commission, to share their project with you folks.
Hi everyone, we're the team working on the Neighborhood Climate Store. It's a project in collaboration with Vancouver Economic Commission. And we are Brian, Scarlett,
And Danielle.
Danielle. Yeah.
Awesome. So why a climate neighborhood store? So this came from the Climate Emergency Action Plan. So if you see on our visual here, you can see that the carbon pollution in Vancouver comes 54% from natural gas use in buildings. I'm a little embarrassed to say that I realized just this year that furnaces are used gas to heat our homes. This is something that I never even thought about before. Often we think about cars, but in a very metro area, this gas in the buildings are actually the biggest polluter. So unlike cars that are a lot easier to switch out, buildings, once you build a building, it's supposed to be there for a really long time. So one way to basically enable getting solving this pollution is doing building electrification and retrofitting. Unfortunately, since this is a big project, it's at an all-time low, and it's really not going as fast as we want, and not a lot of people are even thinking about retrofitting or electrification. So the VEC wants to explore how we can help that problem, and specifically maybe even how hardware stores can help customers drive climate action. So how are we going to do this? So right here we have a little slide about kind of our idea of how we could maybe help hardware stores learn about climate action and be a part of the group, just because I think with hardware stores, we don't really think about climate action very often. And this was where our idea of the neighborhood climate store came from. So we have 4 areas with research, connect, scale, and reach. So since this idea is still in its infancy, we really focus on research for this project. So what did we do? Our partner George was actually really helpful to give us a list that their team created of all the hardware stores in Vancouver.
but we wanted to make this a little more visual for ourselves. So we actually used Google Maps and made a map creation of all the hardware stores in Vancouver. And the nice thing about this is it's super visual and it can be scaled easily to stores outside of Vancouver, but we just focus right now on the city of Vancouver. So this is super nice for our visual, but now we actually wanted to connect with these hardware stores and get to talk to them. So how did we talk to the hardware stores? So first, we did an online survey and we sent this out to about 13 hardware stores. Unfortunately, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, online surveys are really easy to ignore. So this wasn't the best approach. So we went out and actually just went to these hardware stores and talked to them. So we wanted to understand kind of what they know about climate action, and if that's even something they think about. What are their customers thinking about? What are their goals? What are their passions? Just really get their side of the story to see if that can be built into this goal of pushing electrification and retrofitting.
Thanks, Danielle. So the first group of stores that we interviewed were actually large hardware stores. So these stores typically belong to a larger chain corporation. Some examples are like Best Buy or Lowe's. And these stores often had corporate policies that limited staff engagement. So this was already a barrier for us as we were trying to get interviews, and oftentimes the employees would say like, oh, you have to go through the manager, you have to go to talk to the boss company and get permission. And we couldn't really do that within the time frame that we had. So we were really limited to unofficial interviews. Regardless, we still actually got a lot of useful information and perspectives from the staff members that did give us responses. So for example, we learned that cost was a major concern at these stores. And it's just like really for not just the customers, but also for the store themselves. They really cared a lot about the bottom line and just about what is the cheapest options they had. Another thing that we learned is that the education was very limited around climate at these stores. Staff members typically didn't have much training around climate or around the impact of their products on climate change. And when they did, it was mostly about things like existing programs like EnerGuide. However, we also got some interesting feedback. We had some members tell us the limitations of this work, in that there's a real challenge between renting class customers and some of their climate equipment, because you need to have the actual power to actually change these equipments in your home. But a lot of the population of Vancouver is of the renting class and doesn't have that power. Despite this, we still managed to identify certain opportunities for climate action at these stores. For example, we recognize that some stores can run independent programs without needing permissions from their corporate companies. And so we could actually we can envision a climate service that's dedicated for different stores. Another thing is that even though there is this barrier against non-homeowners, we recognize that there are barriers for some homeowners as well. Some homeowners can lack the financial resources to actually purchase climate equipment. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. Reverse slide. Back.
You did too.
Oh,
There you go.
I didn't talk about this one though.
Yeah, this is.
Okay. So the second group of stores, I guess I must have talked so completely that I just didn't recognize the slide change. The second group of stores are the smaller hardware stores. So these, for example, are like Home Hardware, which is actually a cooperatively owned store. They had similar barriers, but they were a bit different. The first one is that, again, like there wasn't really official climate training for these employees. Most of them had to learn self-directed or secondhand education about climate. And the other thing is that customers still only care about price, but they also care about quality and we recognize that there's opportunity to improve workers' understanding because there's a higher level of trust in the staff. I'll leave it to Scarlett.
Thank you, Brian. And on that note, we have suggested 6 different recommendations to provide for VEC for moving forward. First of all is to provide training to staff about climate communications and business landscape, such as including information on the sustainability or energy efficiency aspects of projects for staff to watch during the onboarding training. And our second recommendation is to improve customer education and awareness about climate products. We know that when staffs are trying to promote a more eco-friendly product, it could be confused for bad motives for selling a more expensive product due to the lack of understanding in terms of energy efficiency. And in that note, we would like to recommend to make energy efficiency information more readily available and transparent on the product description, or develop an easy to use toolkit to help customers identify more sustainable options. And our third recommendations is to take into account the systematic barriers for renters versus homeowners, because we know that renters a lot of times does not have the authority to change the hardware of rental unit that they are in, and condo owners who want to modify their condo units are also often regulated by the strata. And next slide, please. And our fourth recommendation is to plan to navigate corporate barriers. During our outreach to different hardware stores, we were often rejected by the hardware stores managers because we were supposed to contact the main office for approvals. And we also noted that a lot of the inventories of those chain hardware stores are actually decided by the head office. So individual hardware stores doesn't have much authority over that. So our recommendation is to take into consideration of the limited, the time that you have to put into consideration, and given our limited timeline in this project, we weren't able to outreach as much hardware stores that we wanted to reach to. And then our fifth recommendations is to focus on services that hardware stores can run independent of corporate mandates. From our research, we realized that even though inventories are decided by head office, like I previously mentioned, individual chain hardware stores can actually provide different kind of services depending on the region. So we recommend that to set up climate desks specific to the region that customers can go to and get information specifically of that area on how to save costs on the climate aspect. And lastly, our last recommendation is to support programs to reduce financial barriers for customers, because we know that customers usually go for the lowest cost options, and with reducing financial barriers to purchase a more sustainable hardware, it would be a really beneficial idea for creating the climate hardware stores. So these are our 6 quick recommendations for moving forward. We know that with the limited timeline, we weren't able to do as much research as we wanted to, but hopefully this would be a good foundation for VEC to move forward. And we're really grateful for all the support from our project partner for this whole time. And thank you everyone for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vancouver Economic Commission and your project team, for such an incredible project. Weren't those projects awesome? Let's have another round of applause virtually and in person. Awesome. All right, so we are halfway through our project presentations. So we're going to take a quick 5-minute break, do some stretching, get up, grab some water, and then we're going to meet back at 6:50 and follow up with our next project. So we have 3 really exciting projects after the break. We have Community Energy Association, OneEarth, and City of Vancouver. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere, and we'll see you in 5 minutes. All right, coming back, folks. We're going to begin with the second half of our project presentations. We have Community Energy Association joining us first, and then OneEarth and City of Vancouver. So coming back into the room, taking a seat, getting settled, and I will invite our next group, Community Energy Association, up to present their project. Come on up.
Hi everyone, welcome back. Hope you're enjoying everything so far. We sure are here. So my name is Chris and I'm joined by Madeline and Danielle, and we were partnered with Community Energy Association, or CEA. And I just want to quickly give a shout out to Carly and Catherine, if Catherine's here as well, but everyone has been so supportive this whole time and we really appreciate it and hope that we can continue collaborating as we move forward. So for our project, we developed a series of recommendations for municipal leaders and staff for engaging with youth in their communities and getting them involved in civic and climate spheres. So through conversations with staff and elected officials in their networks, CEA identified a lack of youth perspectives and engagement at the civic level, as well as the need to create avenues for youth to contribute to some of the climate action work that's happening in their communities. With this in mind, we considered two main priorities for our project. So the first is addressing how governments can bridge the gap of youth engagement in civic processes, especially those related to climate change. And our second priority is ensuring that these recommendations can apply to both rural and urban contexts. And so this can kind of ensure that they can apply to different areas across BC and hopefully encourage some collaboration between municipalities looking to get youth more involved.
I'm too tall. There we go. So to do this, we first conducted a research scan, hoping to identify previous or ongoing cases of meaningful civic youth engagement within the 5 BC government area associations. So as some of you may know, these area associations are governed by an elected executive and they meet to discuss concerns regarding their local communities. However, for our purposes, we mainly use this as a guide to help our initial research scan. So as pictured on the slides, there are the governments that included within these area associations are within the Kootenays and adjacent areas, Vancouver Island and the coast, the Lower Mainland, North Central British Columbia, and the Southern Interior. So our group analyzed these case studies in order to identify successful engagement strategies. We considered what resources were needed for the given cases, what types of partner organizations were involved, the demographics of youth that were involved or maybe who had been left out, and any other major takeaways from what we consider to be successful initiatives. So selected case studies included municipal youth councils, climate action networks such as One Planet or Fresh Outlook Foundation, as well as regional initiatives like Basin Youth Network, Fraser Basin Council, and of course our favorite CityHive. So our next step was then reaching out to contacts from these selected case studies. Typically, these were individuals who were involved in creating or facilitating the initiatives. And so by conducting these interviews, we not only were able to get firsthand accounts of some of the initiatives that will be featured in our final report, but we actually received a lot of invaluable advice from those who have direct experience in civic youth engagement, whether it be climate related or otherwise.
And I'm short enough to get close. So in addition to analyzing, Thank you, awesome. So in addition to analyzing case studies and getting insight from those interviews, another focus in our research scan looked at existing youth engagement reports and toolkits created by different organizations and governmental bodies. These resources provide recommendations and engagement strategies, as well as results from youth surveys. We cross-referenced what we had learned from our case studies and interviews with this existing literature. Next slide, please. So taken together, each of these steps help to inform a final set of recommendations, beginning with the category of getting started. This is the foundational step and involves pre-program building reflections and assessments. So questions to ask at this point include, what is the goal? What resources are available and relevant given to whatever community you're coming from? And what is already being done in the community? And finally, what values and goals are driving this initiative? At this stage, it's also important to consider the players involved other than youth and civic organizers. So this could be like schools and teachers, First Nation elders, or other mentors.
Engaging with key representatives in your community is important for building the network your youth will be working within.
So the next category of recommendations involves the actual program building element. So for instance, identify and outline what types of programs work best for your community, and focus on what is actually going to be encouraging for youth. So maybe this could mean some sort of hands-on project at the community level that could have long-term impacts, that something that they could follow up on and see their work over time. So considering long-term or sustained programming is really important versus some temporary or short-term programming. And it's also important to have opportunities for learning and skill building. And then the third category is about how to engage with youth. So consider your recruitment models and try to focus on relationship building while you're recruiting, rather than having some sort of more formal looking for what they are offering, just approaching it as a way to meet people, meet these youth, and most importantly, meeting them where they're at. So that could be physically, emotionally, ability-wise. And a key priority in this sort of recommendation category is to ensure that the demographic of youth involved in your programming actually mirrors that of your community. And overall, this is as much about creating fulfilling, meaningful, and equitable opportunities for youth as it is about incorporating their perspectives into civic action.
So, again. All right, so as you can see, the fourth category is program upkeep. So this is, considering how you will keep youth engaged and also at the same time ensure longevity in your climate action initiatives. So we do recommend, maintaining an alumni network and getting youth involved in the recruitment of successive cohorts type of thing. We really want to emphasize that it's important to look at youth engagement and engagement in general as an ongoing process. And finally, the final recommendation is miscellaneous, but that is just because there will be different considerations relative to each community. So for instance, we need to recognize that not all youth have access to the same resources. So incorporating ways to enable their participation into the program itself could be good. This could be things like scholarships or opportunities for honorariums, food, transportation, kind of anything. And while we recognize that these resources might not be possible for all communities to offer, it is possible for all communities to discuss what barriers they might be able to help remove to allow more youth to become involved in climate action.
And so the end goal really is to improve relationships between youth and local governments by providing the foundation for, as well as improving access to, civic and community climate initiatives. Within the scope of Metro Vancouver and beyond, we hope to increase the number of opportunities youth have to voice their ideas and concerns related to climate issues in their own communities. It's their future that is at stake in terms of the impact of the policies and the actions that are taken now. And with that, they need to have a say in what happens and how it happens. And with that, we would just like to thank you.
All right, folks, so sorry. We've lost Wi-Fi on our end, which is just what happens with online events. So just with us. We're getting reconnected, getting those slides back up for you. There we go. All right. So as I was saying, next up we have OneEarth, who's going to give a brief presentation of their project.
So hello everybody, my name is Julia and my partner's name is Yasmin. So we partner with OneEarth on supporting life transition. Slide. So this is a very quick agenda of our presentation. So first, we're going to introduce the motivation and idea behind the project. Then we will talk about our approach and final outcome, and we will conclude by possible project impact on the Metro Vancouver. So important contextual information is that household consumption accounts for 60% of global greenhouse gas emission and up to 80% of total land, material, and water use. It can impact indirectly, like when you use motor vehicles, or indirectly, like when emission created during production of items used in household. Yeah, next slide, please. So the IPCC report says that changes in our lifestyles and behavior can reduce the climate emission by 40 to 70% by 2050, but only if appropriate infrastructure policies are introduced. So transformation in our day-to-day lives are critical for achieving sustainability. This is where our project steps up. We're interested in taking advantage of life stages and moments of life to switch habits. Next slide, please. Life transition moments are often overlooked as a way to achieve sustainability, but this is the time when habits and behavior are the most changeable. There is a great potential in redirecting our daily practices and supporting people in making a series of environmentally beneficial choices and establishing low carbon practices. This project focuses on the life transition during migration. Our research audience is international students, as they're more likely to change their habits and they might be more interested in secondhand shopping. And as a bonus point, we are more familiar with them and we have connection to them. So they become significant challenges, and we believe we can develop an environmentally friendly solution that will address some of their struggles. Next slide, please. So we want to focus on promotion of secondhand items among the international students. So how we do this? Our initial point of interest was sustainable pickup service, especially for platforms such as Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. So international students require household items during settlement that might be missing. The delivery service makes items more accessible online and reduces the transportational difficulty. We assumed that secondhand shopping lacks the option and making reusing less appealing. So this was our initial focus, and Yassi will take over in presenting what we did next.
Awesome. Thank you, Julia, for sharing all that great information. So it started by sending out surveys and interviewing college and university students. We sent out 2 surveys. The survey number 1 focused on the barriers faced by international students and whether or not they consider sustainability during immigration. Survey number 2 focused on students' daily transportation means and general opinions surrounding secondhand shopping. And unfortunately, due to limited amounts of time that we had, our sample size is not big enough, but despite that, we still got really good information. Next slide, please. So as you can see, these are the main findings based on the surveys. As expected, the primary source of information was the internet, including websites, Instagram, and Facebook. The financial concerns and having difficulty acquiring household items were the primary concerns that this group brought up before and during immigration. Next slide, please. Now, while all of those previous points aligned with our expectations, we were surprised to find out that the primary concern associated with the secondhand shopping was lack of knowledge about secondhand stores and limited availability of quality goods, not lack of delivery options. So we decided to shift our focus from delivery options to increasing awareness about secondhand shopping in general, and considering the fact that 60% of our audience or our participants didn't consider sustainability during immigration, we decided to emphasize affordability and style. Next slide, please. So we decided to start a campaign to promote the culture of secondhand shopping, and we have decided to introduce secondhand shopping to international students as something that is socially acceptable or even favored in Canada. Next slide, please. So we're starting this campaign on Instagram, and we're using the hashtag OneEarth1Style. You can see the QR code below, so please take your phones and scan that code. That will bring you to our Instagram account. And this information about the campaign and slogan will be translated into multiple languages and to increase the accessibility of the campaign. And we hope to connect to Vancouver-based influencers to increase the awareness about this campaign. And we're hoping that this campaign will increase participation in secondhand shopping, so that we increase the availability of the items and also raise awareness about the stores. Next slide, please. So the campaign will be launched tonight, like during this session. So again, please use that QR code to get to our Instagram accounts. And now feel free to post your images with the secondhand items that you have purchased. Also, don't forget to add or tag the store that you purchased the item from, and write some good ideas about why you like secondhand shopping. Now, OneEarth will be continuing this project, so we will be providing an outline about possible influencers and stores that they can reach out to increase awareness about this campaign. This is just the beginning. Next slide, please. Now, as for the impact that this campaign can have, we know that each year many international students settle in Vancouver, and promoting secondhand shopping can address any financial concerns that they might have or any climate anxiety that they might have currently. And we know that as secondhand fashion becomes the mainstream, we could drive attention away from the low quality fast fashion, which is not environmentally friendly. Next slide, please. Also, we have seen an increase, statistics suggest that secondhand market increases revenue for charitable organizations that sell those secondhand merchandise. And we have Salvation Army that, and they reported approximately 152 million Canadian dollars in in revenue acquired through the sale of donated goods. We can also potentially increase BC's participation in secondhand shopping. Currently, 85% of Canadians participate in secondhand shopping, but BC is ranking 3rd province, so we could catch up with Ontario and Alberta. So again, this is the very first step. We are hoping that we are providing some baseline information for OneEarth to continue this project. We'll be participating as well. And thanks for listening, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have during the Q&A session. And we would like to end by thanking CityHive team and also OneEarth team for their continuous support. And yeah, make sure that you scan that QR code and join our campaign. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, OneEarth. Super cool campaign that you have there. Let's give another round of applause. Yeah, don't forget to use that hashtag, something you can do right now. So with that being said, we have our last group who will be presenting their project today. So I'm going to invite City of Vancouver to come up with their youth engagement strategy. Come on up, folks.
Hi, everyone. Sorry. We're here to present to you about how to improve the youth engagement for the City of Vancouver's climate change adaptation strategy. Here we have Emily, Alex, Sammy, Lydia, and my name is Frederick. Next slide, please. The City of Vancouver originally launched their climate change adaptation strategy back in 2012. However, it's been 10 years since then, and as we all know, climate change has changed on the ground in Vancouver since then. All you have to do is to consider last year's floods, wildfires, and heat waves to know that climate change is having a serious impact on the people of Vancouver today. And so in response to this, the City of Vancouver is renewing the climate change adaptation strategy to ensure the continued health and well-being of the community. Because of the importance of climate change adaptation for the people of Vancouver, the City of Vancouver is doing public engagement on this to identify what's most important to the City of Vancouver in adapting to climate change. However, youth have typically been very difficult to engage in public policy. And so that brings us to our problem statement of how can we better engage youth for the City of Vancouver's climate change adaptation strategy.
Thank you, Frederick. Yeah, so in order to address this problem, we have come up with a youth engagement strategy to support this engagement of this community in the next report. We have an evidence base, which is based in the engagement strategies which were carried out in different countries, in different continents, like, for example, Asia, Africa, and for sure in North America, for sure Canada. So the content of this strategy is based in the experience of each member of this group, the experience and the knowledge, but also in the evidence base.
So when crafting our youth engagement strategy, we really wanted to place an emphasis on accessibility and inclusion. So best practices for inclusion and accessibility were thoroughly developed already by the BC government in a toolkit that was created alongside Indigenous youth and Indigenous elders. So we recommended that the City of Vancouver review that toolkit. However, we gathered the best youth engagement practices for climate related specifically. So the highlights from our findings are working along, youth should also work, youth should be working alongside non-government agencies and also just youth-led organizations to leverage their connections and expertise when engaging with youth. And overall, organizations should really avoid fear-dominant discourse around climate change and really should include a sentiment of hope and opportunity. Youth should be encouraged to imagine that a better world is possible.
Thank you. Next. To summarize some of the highlights of our approach to youth engagement, here are a few critical aspects to keep in mind when interacting with youth through activities and surveys. It is critical to have an educational component to this approach to develop climate literacy among youth. This allows meaningful and well-informed engagement for both ends. It is encouraged to implement creative and progressive thinking in the engagement process to promote out-of-the-box ideas that can push for change. Additionally, we recommend to have partnership with Vancouver-based community organizations like CityHive. This opens up engagement to existing bodies of youth who are involved and can extend their networks to encourage more youth engagement. These partnerships also could be with community centers and neighborhood houses as well. Communication measures to inform youth engagement opportunities continue through community organizations and through social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Additionally, places like high schools and universities are great spaces to directly inform and engage with youth. To evaluate meaningful engagement, we have identified three main concepts to apply when assessing. First, to identify a definition of youth participation. We have defined this as sharing power and stepping away from adult-centric imbalance in decision-making. Secondly, are youth receptive to reformative narratives? And are youth challenging the current climate narrative? Lastly, what is the engagement outcome? How and where are youth being implemented into the adoption plan process, and are they being engaged through each stage?
And this is the last slide of our presentation. And while we recognize that our youth engagement strategy can be leveraged for the City of Vancouver's climate change adaptation plan, we also realize that the research that we did and the lived experiences that we have as youth in this city can be leveraged through the strategy to beyond the climate change adaptation strategy. So we included additional guidance on how to use social media to gain attention to climate change issues, specifically how to communicate key dates such as protest dates, city hearing or city council meeting dates, and how to strategically frame and communicate these dates to youth to gain the most attention to these dates and effective response. We also gave additional guidance on how to ensure that protests and marches are accessible to, with regards to plain language and those with disabilities attending these protests and marches. And lastly, we advise that the city really communicate to youth that their care and attention to climate change issues in this city do have a tangible and meaningful effect on policy and climate change work. Whether it's this care is expressed through writing to their representatives, calling their representatives, attending these protests and marches, or weighing in at city council meetings by hopefully getting those correct dates from the social media or other channels. That all really does have an effect in moving forward important climate change action that will go towards their future. And we just want to thank our partners at City of Vancouver, Tamsin and Brad, and as well thank Jack and Sayano at CityHive for really guiding us through this program. And we all learned a lot, I think.
All right. Thank you so much to all of our project teams for their wonderful project presentations. So each team really had a chance to work closely with one of our community partners, one of our project partners. So these were local municipalities and other local organizations in so-called Vancouver. Let's give them another round of applause on the virtually. Awesome. So now we're going to be moving into a Q&A panel discussion with our project teams in breakout rooms. So This is really an opportunity to get to know each team, learn more about their projects, network, and create pathways towards collective climate action together. So in a moment, there will be 2 breakout rooms with 3 teams in each room. You will have about 10 minutes to ask questions and network with the teams. After the 10 minutes is up, you will have another 10 minutes to talk with the other 3 teams. So there's going to be 2 groups. You're going to get to go to both. But just so you know, you don't have to move between the rooms. We're going to be doing all of that for you. So as soon as the breakout rooms open up, you're going to get a chance to, speak with some of our project teams and ask any questions that might be coming up for you. So without further ado, we are going to open up the breakout rooms and get to know our cohort members a little bit more. We're super excited. So I will open up the breakout rooms and feel free to join and have some good conversations. Hello, folks. A little bit of a rocky return to the main room. So sorry about that. We lost a bit of internet connection on our end, but we hope that was enough time for you folks to have a chance to ask some questions and get to know our participants a little bit better and their projects a little bit better. So thank you all for participating in that activity with us. And we're just going to close off this evening with a few closing remarks. So we wanted to thank you all so much for joining us this evening to celebrate the first cohort of the Youth Climate Innovation Lab and the incredible work that they've done. Let's give another warm round of applause to our cohort members. Awesome. We would also like to thank the Hussein Foundation, Van City, and the Trottier Foundation for their generous funding support, as well as our wonderful steering committee members for their mentorship over the last couple months and for helping us out with our projects. This could not have been possible without any of you. So thank you so much. We will be sending out a follow-up email to all attendees who came this evening with an event feedback survey. By filling out the survey, you can have a chance to win one of 3 gift cards. So please fill out that survey. We really would like some feedback just to kind of do better moving forward. And we would really appreciate it. And finally, thank you to everyone who was able to make it to tonight's event. We appreciate your support and we look forward to seeing you at future CityHive events and potentially future YCIL events. We have a new cohort starting in the new year, so stay tuned for that and other CityHive events and programs. So thank you so much. Maybe round of applause again. And for any questions or comments, please feel free to contact myself, the programming coordinator, at jacqueline@cityhive.ca. Follow our social media and fill out that survey. Thanks again, folks. And have a good rest of your evening. Thanks, everyone.